Hello and welcome to The Agenda on Labour Social. Me, Graham Hughes, and Phil Morehouse. How you doing, Phil? You all right, mate?
Not too badly, yes.
Yeah, good. So it's been an eventful 24 hours, hasn't it?
Yes, that's why I needed a calming image behind me.
Okay, we've got a badger.
Yes.
I've got my little badger here as well. Little icon of the channel. So welcome to everyone in the chat. We've got Joe Lefty in there. We've got Max, Anthony. We've got Sean, Cluster Bungle. We've got One Aggie Pagan, Simon Smith, David Downey, Mike Higgins, and Roger Haslock and Joanne Mason. How you all doing this afternoon? We are going to be talking first up about Reform UK KK. Do you see what I did there?
Yeah.
So it came out last night on Channel 4 that they had followed a campaigner for Reform around, and it turned out he was a massive racist. I was shocked.
Well, I mean, it's worse
Shocked
than that,
I was.
really. It's worse because, it's more this sort of attitude towards like migrants. And the other thing to note is, again, not enough's been said about this. So that's an activist, right? You've got, like, nothing's been made of the fact a Reform UK candidate has said that, we should slaughter migrants. He's still a candidate. They've dropped a few candidates where it was revealed they used to be members of the BNP, even though the former leader of the BNP, Nick Griffin, claims that Nigel Farage was once a member of the National Front.
Yeah.
Which was worse. But they don't drop the candidate who says that migrants should be slaughtered. And yet they're today trying to distance themselves from a guy who sort of said the same thing to camera. But they're not distancing themselves from it. Now, people are trying to say, oh, Nigel Farage has condemned the comments. No, he hasn't. He hasn't. He's tried to condemn the person. Oh, he's an actor who's in Holby City. Therefore, he must have been put up as an actor by Channel 4. They're trying to distance, but they're not distancing themselves from the comments. What Nigel Farage actually said was, that's how people talk.
Yeah.
Oh, you go to the pub, and that's how people talk.
That's how people talk in his pub, maybe.
This is how maybe it was in the. This is what I was saying. This is how it was in the 70s. Now I don't remember. So I do remember the 80s when people like Bernard Manning were taken from our television screens, and it was like you do that in your own private club, mate. So it still went on. Bernard Manning, for those who don't know, is a deeply racist comedian who was on our television screens in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
But people like that. I grew up at a time when Britain became more tolerant. So through the 90s, the 80s and the 90s and the noughties in particular, we became a much more tolerant society, and people would complain about, oh, political correction gone mad. But actually what we were saying to you is, can you not use words that dehumanize people, please?
Yeah. Well, political correctness, it was the woke of its day, wasn't it? Everything I don't like was politically correct. Every time it was like, just be nice to people, treat people with respect. Oh, it's political correctness gone mad. They would scream often. Now the question that we've posed for this episode is, could Reform UK, KK, actually become the opposition? This is Farage's dream. He stated it in his opening gambit with Richard Tice in the background, when Richard Tice gave up leadership of the party to allow Nigel Farage to return. Brad W, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. Graham, have you been to bed yet? Yes, briefly. But yeah, we'll get into that later. Not me going to bed, but the fact that I was up all night watching the stupid debate in America, which has properly wound me up. But yeah, so Phil, what do you reckon the chances are in 2029 that Farage could actually lead Reform to being the opposition?
Zero. Reform. Nigel Farage, I mean, although you say Nigel Farage has said that, Nigel Farage has also said he doesn't want to make Reform UK a political party. He was asked by Krishnan Gurumurthy a few weeks ago on Channel 4. He says, well, if you're serious about this, you need to turn Reform UK into a proper political party, then don't you? And he says, well, do you really have to? He doesn't. Reform UK is a short-term project. I'm more inclined to believe that it exists simply to calibrate the Conservative Party, whether with a direct takeover with Nigel Farage, because he also regularly says that he sees himself leading the Conservative Party in a few years. I mean, Nigel Farage says a lot of things, like, he'll say one thing one day, another thing the next day. He just throws things out there.
Yeah, he doesn't have to follow anything through.
He's got fascist Tourette's as Nigel Farage. So, so he'll say all sorts of things. Now, there is a potential pathway, I suppose, to that being more likely. Reform UK is not a long-term project. They know that. Otherwise, they would try. Like, why don't they try and turn it into, like, they've already done it with UKIP. Why didn't they do this? It's because they don't want to. It exists. They just want that control. It's there. It's there to throw the Conservative Party off. Whether they trust people within the Conservative Party to complete the project, or whether they think they need to take it over, that I don't know. What I do know is that there's probably a lot of people within the Conservative Party who think, because Reform UK are hiving off a lot of their votes, if they could form a formal merger, that it would unite those votes. But there's a couple of things that they're missing if they think that. First of all, even if you add up their votes at the moment, it's still a long way behind what's needed to win power. It's not simply that they've got this election winning vote and it's split. If you combine it together, it still couldn't win an election. But the other thing is that you wouldn't unite that vote, because at the moment, there are Conservative voters, like committed Conservative voters, what you might call One Nation Tories, Conservatives with a small c, this sort of group, who are going to vote Conservative. It's their party. They don't like Labour. They really don't like Labour. And they see that their party is clearly messing it up, but they still think it's the better option, and they're sticking with their party. They wouldn't do that with Nigel Farage. They do not like Nigel Farage. They do see Nigel Farage largely for what he is. But then you've got the ones who did easily go to Reform UK, the really committed ones, the ones who'll pay a fiver to listen to Nigel Farage talking from the top of a bus. They hate the One Nation Tories.
Can I just point this out, Phil? So all of the rallies so far, you've had to pay to get in, haven't you?
Yeah. It's a grift. It's a massive grift.
You have to pay to go and watch someone spout a load of bollocks and say things that they're never going to be able to actually do or follow up on.
He wouldn't turn up to the hustings. He wouldn't go to the Clacton hustings, because then he couldn't charge a fee for that.
Yeah, that's true. He didn't go to the hustings. But I mean, what are they thinking? Like the people who are supporting this, just going, oh yeah, I want to pay someone to, I don't know. It's like a sex line that you pay for. But instead of someone saying sexy things to you, they say fascist things to you. And it's like, yeah, well, I'll pay for that.
They might even just think they're donating to a cause, like donating to charity. Oh, this is a cause I believe in. It's worth a few quid. They may just think they're supporting it. But, it's like someone pointed out, and they're dead right. They said, the thing is, let's say their dreams came true and Nigel Farage actually became Prime Minister. A few years later, the people who voted for him would be saying, because he wouldn't deliver what he's promised. So they would be saying, this isn't the reform I voted for, just like they say about Brexit.
Well, would they, though? Because you got Trump, who didn't deliver anything that he promised, like the wall, getting rid of all Muslims, getting rid of all immigrants, putting out...
Yeah, but they blame the deep state.
They'll do the same thing with Farage.
I'm not saying they'd blame Farage, but they would still be... When you go to them a few years later and everything's in ruins, and you say, is this what you voted for? They will say, no, this isn't what we voted for. They may not blame Farage for it, but they would insist that it's not what they voted for, even though we will say it's exactly what you voted for, because we told you this is what would happen. Yeah, just like with Brexit.
We told you it would be a nightmare, and it was a nightmare. Yeah. That doesn't work, though, does it? Because if you say that to people, they just get angry with you.
Well, they do.
Not with the people who caused the nightmare in the first place.
Precisely. That's the old saying. It's like, you can tell your best friend you're being conned, that guy's conning you, and then when it doesn't work and they've conned you, they're angry at the friend. They're not angry at the con men. The con men just took their money. They're angry at the friend because you made them look stupid.
Yeah, and that sums up a lot of reform, refuck voters. But I mean, can we just talk about Ben Habib for a moment? I mean, he's in a party where people openly refer to people who are, whose ancestors
he's not British.
come from.
He's not British as far as they're actually. He's sort of. I mean,
Yeah.
because they've described, I mean, that person on the Channel 4 thing described Rishi Sunak was, should we say, a racial slur that implies he's from Pakistan. It's like his family's actually from India, but so they don't even know their subcontinent geography. But it's like, but I mean, Rishi Sunak is actually British. He's British. He's as British as I am. But they don't call him that. So when they say, "Oh, we're about putting Britons first," it's just to be clear, they use it as a euphemism. They don't mean Britons.
No, they mean white people. Yeah. So that's not Ben Habib. Now I'm just wondering how Ben Habib, he must be in his 40s, 50s now or something.
It'd be older than that, wouldn't it? I can look him up easily.
How has he gone that long without passing a mirror? My only supposition on this is he must be a vampire. So he doesn't actually realise that he's not white and that he's going in with a bunch of neo-Nazis who would like to see people like him thrown out the country or shot on a beach.
But I honestly don't know with people like him. You could say the same thing about people like Rishi Sunak and Kemi Badenoch and Priti Patel and Swela Braverman, who downplay racism against people of their like ethnic grouping. They downplay it when people attack them as they don't attack them personally as not being British. They won't name them because they're on their side. They're the useful ones. But when people like them are described as not being British, they don't call it out. You know, when that guy racially abused Rishi Sunak and wouldn't describe him as British, Rishi Sunak didn't call that out. Today he's tried to use it by saying, "Oh, you know, this just shows that Farage is a tool of Putin and stuff like that." He's tried to use that angle, but he hasn't called out the inherent racism in that sort of behaviour.
Why do you think that is? Is that because the Tories are enthralled to the racists who fund them?
I don't know.
I mean, there was a guy who said that Diane Abbott should be shot, and that he makes him hate. She makes him hate all black people, and not only have they not thrown him out the party by the looks of things, they're still accepting money from him.
Yeah.
£15 million in total now.
I suspect it's less about the donors in that case, because he may be an aberration. I think most of the donors are just like in it for the money. I don't necessarily know that they have an ideological bent to them. Yeah. I think it's more like there's an understanding that there's a core of support for the Conservative. Well, particularly at the moment, they probably don't feel like they can be pissing off any groups of voters. But the idea of the Conservatives, I think, at any time actually calling out racism of that sort is very unlikely. I mean, you could argue a lot of political parties try and avoid causing division unnecessarily because you could lose votes out of it, because all, racist votes worth anyone else's vote. I do think it's probably more I think it's more likely thinking about voters than donors.
It's still disgraceful to see people who will, they'll be fine because they're rich people who are part of an ethnic minority, but they are selling out other people from that same ethnic minority. Yeah. And one of the things that winds me up is like they go, "Oh, look at these, look at Cleverly, look at Rishi Sunak, look at Braverman and Zadid Zahari." All of them went to private school. The fact that they've got
actually no, Cleverly did. They went to
they all did. And so they're not representative of the vast majority of people with their racial backgrounds. But to the Tories, they are the tokens. They're the people who go, "Oh, look," they can hold them up and say, "Look, we're not massively racist because we've got these people." No, they've got their old school chums in on it. And for them, if the shit hits the fan, they have the money and the connections to get out.
And do you know what? I bet all of those people were racially abused at school as well.
Yeah.
But it's just the classic case of pull the ladder up, Jack, I'm all right.
Yeah.
But they're not representative. They don't see themselves as pioneers. They're not there to help others behind them. Yeah,
they're used as representations of entire groups of people, but they are so unusual for that group.
Yeah.
Paul Ewan, thank you very much for the £20 super chat there, mate. That's really kind of you. Graham, missed live morning brew, but just watched. Here's some cash to help fund attendees for the watch party. Oh, thanks so much, Paul. Paul is referring there to the party we're having on Thursday, the 4th of July, down in London in Vauxhall. And if you'd like to come, it's going to be held at the Fire Club in Vauxhall from 9 o'clock in the evening till 3 o'clock in the morning. If you would like to come to that, please send me a message on grahamdavidhughes.com. There is a message box at the bottom, which will come to me, and I'll give you the details for that. And we've also got some spaces for people to come for nothing, as Paul and other people have contributed to not just their tickets, but also their bus fare if they're coming, or underground fare if they're coming in from London, and also a couple of drinks as well. So if you like that, if you like the sound of that, get in touch. Brad W, thank you very much. Tories attack diversity policy in company stroke society, but happily boast about the number of minorities who have been prime ministers. Rank hypocrisy. You're absolutely right, Brad, and thanks for the super chat. Johnny Carperhead, £5 super chat. Farage is the grifter of the Trumpian school. Nazi and nasty. Yeah, couldn't agree more, mate. They're not. These private schools are not sending their best. What can I say? I just found it funny, Phil, before we came on. James O'Brien was on, and he was talking about private schools, and he said, I want to listen to the experience of people who didn't go to private schools and how they, feel about the people that they know in their life who did. The first person that called up went to a private school.
Yeah.
And the last person who called up went to a private school. And I'm just listening going, it's like when he has a woman, he says, I want to talk to women about this particular women's issue. And men call in, and he has to specifically say, men, please don't call in on this. I don't want to talk to you. Don't want your opinion. I just want to speak to women. And men call up anyway. But there you go. But I mean, in terms of sort of that feeling of entitlement. No, I know I went to private school, but I've got to tell the plebs what to think. Right, Tinkinator, a massive, amazing, thank you so much. £50 super chat. That is absolutely stonking. Thank you so much. The comment is, Reform is a far-right lobby group of the Tory party. Its vision is to destroy democracy in the 2030s, explains why so many Tories support them. Extremes thrive where moderates fail. Labour must be radical with policy at some point or we're finished. I agree with you on that. I think Labour will become more radical in office. I think they're saying what they need to say to get into office, but once they actually get there, they can be more radical. And Tickinator, I think you're absolutely right. I think that Farage's big thing, and what he's getting funded to do, probably oil and gas, but that's, because he's all against net zero. But also, he wants the privatization of the NHS. Now, Phil, if you were an upper middle class grifter like that Farage creep, and you were being paid by private companies, private healthcare providers in America to get our NHS privatized, what would be a really good line to make the NHS absolutely collapse? Would it be just sort of saying, we should make the NHS private? Or would it be to say, why don't we stop having any migrants coming? Let's have zero migrants. What do you think that would do to the NHS?
That's also the top policy of the BNP, by the way.
Destroy the NHS.
But that is exactly what you do, and that's what the Conservatives have done effectively. Yep. If you look at what they're doing now, so yes, they're making it more difficult to get qualified staff in. They've deliberately throttled the number of medical training places in this country. They say, we should have more British doctors and nurses. We're throttling the number of places for training them. We're paying uncompetitive salaries. You can get loads more money in, say, Ireland. So language wouldn't be an issue, or even Brexit, because, of course, a British doctor or nurse can go and work in Ireland, no problem at all.
Yep.
Because we have freedom of movement with Ireland. And you've also actually got qualified. I mean, the latest thing at the moment is you've got qualified GPs who are not allowed. GPs practices are largely not being allowed to hire new GPs, but they're getting these pharmacy associates. Physician associates. Get right, pharmacy, behave yourself. Physician associates, which are like not doctors, but they're going to do things that doctors do, and also creating training programs for medical school. The idea being you qualify as a doctor in a short number of years. That's Rishi Sunak's latest thing, which of course then makes it, first of all, you're not a properly trained doctor. I suppose it's one way of stopping them going to another country to work, because no other country will have you because you're not properly trained. But I mean, that is what you would do. You would massively reduce the capacity of the NHS in various ways, so that people are initially forced to pay privately, because what's happening at the moment, you've got this two-tier system. People who can afford, like very often, a lot of treatment you can't actually get privately in this country anyway. We don't have a very integrated private healthcare system. But what you can do is get a private doctor to give you a diagnosis, then you jump the queue in the NHS for the actual treatment. And then there are some things for which you can actually get genuinely medical care. So it's about getting as many people as possible. It's like smoking in parallel, like the way you try and reduce smoking in this country. It was initially to target this and try to chip away at the number of people smoking to the point where we've now got, relatively few people smoking in this country, and it keeps going. They're doing the same thing with the NHS. Wean as many people off the NHS as possible, get those to pay for it privately. So you reduce the number of people who depend on the NHS over time. And because those people who depend on it are the ones who tend not to be key swing voters anyway, for various reasons, then it becomes easier to sideline them. And this is all the eventual plan. It's not to talk about, like Nigel Farage makes a mistake in talking about a private insurance system. It's not popular. You say that in this country, and it is not a popular thing. So he's mad to say it. The way to do it is exactly the way the Tories have been doing it. You just slowly undermine the NHS, slowly try and get as many people. There was a time where an NHS doctor was not allowed to tell you where like a private clinic for something was, even if it's a service you couldn't get on the NHS. They just weren't allowed to say, oh, there's this guy who does private practice.
Now they push you that way.
Now they push it. They actually push it onto you. Have you thought about doing this? You could get it done privately.
Alec Barrett, thank you very much for the super chat, pointing out the commentarial area dates back to the Treaty of Dublin, 1921. Fantastic stuff. And there was a couple of messages about dealing with people who are difficult. Let's say David Lilly saying, I once had a similar thing happen with an aunt, and she said, I made her look stupid. I just said, no, you made yourself look stupid by ignoring advice from people. Which is so true. I mean, like, the big one for me is always when you've said something to a friend about their partner being not great, let's just say, and then years down the line, they split up with that partner, but they still don't talk to you. They don't ring you up and say, look, you were really sorry. Sorry, I'm really sorry about, not believing you. Because this idea that you've made them look daft is worse somehow than the person who's actually been horrible to them. And Captain Bart Robert says, about 10 years ago, my partner had to drag me out of her stepfamily's Christmas bash when her step-uncle said something racist. My immediate reaction was a whip pan of my head. I mean, it is mad now, especially when I always feel like if someone under the age of 50 says something racist or homophobic or even transphobic, it's always a bit of a shock. Whereas if people over that age say something, it's horrible. I mean, it's shocking, but it's less of a shock. And that makes me sound tremendously ageist, but should we talk about the debate last night?
You can a little bit. I've seen some clips.
What did you think of the clips?
It's a bit grim. It should be impossible to lose a debate to Donald Trump with zero preparation.
It was horrible. I watched the whole thing. I just had my head in my hands for most of it. It was just horrific, a slow motion car crash.
Because the thing is, like, it's not even like Donald Trump's this like terrible person. He also has
he is a terrible person.
Yes, but he also has worse cognitive functions, and he is a dumber man. He was a dumber man 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And yet, how is it possible to lose a debate to him? Even given that Biden has been clearly struggling, it's impossible. But the thing is, no one's approaching it sensibly. You've got all these people. I've seen so many comments from people in America. I'm not talking about gobshites in this country. In America, who are going, well, this is nonsense. We need this. But then they'll go, oh, we need this person or this person or this person. And like, the people who say Bernie Sanders, it's like, well, like, I mean, he's probably a bit Marmite anyway. But at the same time, you can't say the problem with Biden is too old, let's get someone even older. Because even though people say, oh, yeah, but Bernie Sanders could hold his own in debate, it's like, well, yeah, that's true. But if you're trying to win this broad consensus, there'll be people like, if Biden now steps down, which please, he's surely got to, but anyway, I don't know. But if he steps down now, you replace him with someone else, there'll be a whole section of the public who'll go, wait, hold on, you've Biden stepped down because he's losing it, he's too old, and you've replaced him with someone even older. You're not going to win those people by doing that. You need someone else. But then you have people saying like Michelle Obama, and it's like, but do we know that Michelle Obama would be any good? Or are we just associating her with the fact that she was a popular first lady and she was associated with someone who could definitely hold his own? Do we know that she's a good politician? Yeah. And some of the other names, it's like people are still making the same mistakes. They're thinking, I like this person. It's still identity politics. You know, a Biden needs to go, I like this person, should have this person. Why? I've not heard anyone waxing lyrical on this who is saying this is the person that a lot of Americans would get behind. It's all about, I like this person, I approve of this person. It's like, can you look outside your own boxes? Can you actually think who would swing voters in America who aren't Democrats, but you know, they could go either way or they could stay at home or whatever. Why aren't you trying to find the person that they would get behind? Why are you trying to back your own champion at such a juncture?
Yeah, good point. We've got a couple of user super chats come through here. We've got Richard S. Thank you. Hi, guys. I watched the Royal Shrewsbury Hospital Dispatches programme at my local hospital. It's my local hospital. I'm so worried about the NHS's future. My mum died in that hospital too. I'm so sorry, Richard, to hear that. Can streeting do much? So we're talking about Wes Streeting. He's been handed a bit of a shit sandwich, but there's a lot of good things that he could do, which Phil is about to reel off, I'm sure. But before we do that, Sean is saying, do you know that Tories now allow private companies to use the NHS logo, which again is just disgraceful. Typical Tories. Yes. And then Brad W, £5 super chat, thank you. Don't ask Biden and Trump while they're running at that age. Ask the donors why they are funding them over younger alternatives. That's fair enough. And Gary Arnold, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. £5 there. So yes, Phil, what can Wes Streeting do, and what does it look like he's going to do?
Well, we know that they are going to change in 10 years' time. If Labour, do get at least 10 years, which they should do, it will be unrecognisable again. It will be much better. Does that mean they'll get every decision right? We don't know. I mean, the biggest fear, my biggest fear is not the intent. Remember, it is Labour's policy to, like, people keep talking about privatisation because they're talking about private capacity to try and get the waiting list down. But their actual, that's not privatisation. Privatisation is when you take existing state infrastructure and privatise it. They're not talking about that. They've actually said the biggest insourcing in a generation. Now, admittedly, a generation doesn't go very far back. I would like to say the biggest insourcing since the 1940s. But nonetheless, that is nationalisation. That is, and so I will hold them to that. But the biggest fear for me is it's like you say, they have to do it as efficiently as possible. They have to do it as efficiently as possible. So they have to look at how can we deliver these outcomes in a different way. Therefore, the natural inclination is to use modern technology. We know that they want to try and use AI themselves for a lot of things because the natural thing is to say, well, we need way more staff in the NHS, which we do. But Labour will say, but we can't physically get in the amount of staff in a short period of time that we need. So are there things we could do with AI or something like that? And my fear is you end up in a situation, because I've seen this myself, where minister gets a presentation from someone saying, our tool can do this, our business can deliver this thing. And it all sounds wonderful. And it doesn't deliver quite what they said. And maybe the minister, didn't necessarily, because how do you know who to believe as well?
Yes.
That's the problem, because they've got to deal with this really quickly. They will have people giving them pictures. Oh, we can deliver this thing and it'll do this thing and it'll be marvelous. And you want that delivered and you end up, remember the problem with the Horizon scandal is not that the system didn't work very well. The scandal is it was covered up.
Yeah.
But you nonetheless can end up in a situation where you get a system that actually doesn't work as well as it should, quite innocently, without actually anyone trying to be an arsehole or devious about it. You can just end up listening to a pitch that sounds great and sounds like it will work, and that's the very thing we want, and it doesn't deliver and it's like 2 years later, but by the time you work out it's not going to deliver what you wanted. Yeah. And then what do? You're looking at the next election.
I'm hoping that things get better quickly under Labour. If they got a stonking big majority, I know we keep saying there's no such thing as a super majority, but what a bigger majority does make easier is getting through radical policies. What do you want? Do you want Labour to change Britain for the better in a short amount of time? Or do you want them quibbling with one or two hangout MPs who have got a problem with a particular policy area because of what it will do potentially to the house prices in their constituency? Come on. You can't have both. Do you know what I mean?
Well, actually, I mean, that's the larger majority is going to mean more NIMBYs, because Labour are going to end up winning. It's a bit like the Labour are going to have the same problems the Tories had in 2019, only Labour have a clearer plan. So 2019, one of the big problems the Tories had after that election was they had this entirely new group of MPs who actually wanted the public services. They wanted the big state stuff that Boris Johnson was promising, which was totally at odds with Tory thinking. Now, Labour are going to have a similar problem in that they're going to get MPs in places they've not been used to. Where it's the opposite. They're going to get MPs who are going to have to represent NIMBYs. And but they should have the numbers to overcome that. But there's going to be rows about local issues. There's going to be those rows. But Starmer has insisted he's going to ram them through, and he'll have the numbers to do it.
Yeah.
But there are going to be. There's going to be bleating. There's going to be arguments.
Well, I think the big one is going to be housing, isn't it? Because the Tories are very much of the thinking of, if we build any more houses, that's going to bring house prices down.
Which Starmer has explicitly said he wants. Yeah. Like, it's quite funny. The Tories are moaning about stamp duty and stuff like that. And it's like, well, if you don't like all these people pay stamp duty, do you know what we could do? If we reduce the cost of houses, then all of a sudden fewer people pay stamp duty, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we don't want that. We don't want that.
Yeah. The stamp duty thing is a weird one. I thought it was always that if you with getting your first house to live in, you didn't have to pay stamp duty. I thought that was already a thing.
I'm not sure how long it's been a thing, but either way, it's. I mean, Labour's policy. I mean, their big policy on first-time buyers anyway is first-time buyers will get first dibs on new builds.
Yeah,
which is that is straight away a policy that helps first-time buyers.
Yeah. That should be great. That'd be great. Okay, should we head back over to the other side of the pond just to finish off what we were talking about with the Biden debate? So Biden he's been voted on by the delegates all around America. So he is the candidate that they want. Now, if he does not voluntarily stand down of his own volition, then he is going to be the nominee. However, the convention hasn't taken place yet. He can step down. He can step down today, and that will allow it's going to be messy, but at the convention, they could decide who they want to go up against Trump. And basically, all of the delegates going to the convention will have a free vote because the person that they were supposed to vote for isn't going to be there. Yeah. Or isn't going to be available for this. The same sort of thing would happen if a nominee died before, between being nominated and the convention. So I'm sure that's probably happened before in American history. I don't know. It's not happened in the modern age, obviously. But I think this is the only way they can do it. But do you feel, Phil, that this one old man's ego will get the better of him and he'll be like, no, I need to stay on as leader, even though I am not demonstrably not capable of doing this job?
Is it ego? Because there could, I don't know whether he is egotistical or not, Joe Biden. It's not necessarily ego. You can see how various arguments will start. So it's like the Neil Kinnock, isn't it? Where even recently he was saying the issue is in in the early 90s, there was no one ever ready to take over, and you wonder, and he would have stepped aside if there had been. And you think to yourself, well, if only John Smith had been ready a couple of years before then, because he actually did really well as soon as he took over. Is it the same thing? Is there a it might not be ego, it might be a genuine fear that you're going for an unknown, it looks chaotic, and it could cause arguments and splits and stuff like that at a really crucial juncture. And you could look at that and go, but but at the moment you're looking really bad, and there's going to be another debate as well before this is all over, and and it's worth it. And it's better to do it earlier than later. But you could understand some people genuinely thinking, we could end up with something even worse, or we don't really know because there isn't a set plan B. There isn't a clear plan B.
How can there not have been a plan B over the last 4 years?
Well, exactly.
How have we got here?
I would say
the Democrats' fault. They've been sleeping on the job.
100%. And I would say, going far further back, I would say when they messed up, because they went for Hillary Clinton, who was someone who actually put off some demographics you would have thought someone in her position should have been able to win over really easily, like women's groups. And you would have thought that would have brought in a period of introspection that, again, it's like what I was saying, you've got to think about the candidate that can bring in those swing voters who are outside your movement. And you would have thought that the failure over Clinton should have brought that, and it didn't. It never did.
Yeah.
I can understand them saying, because a lot of people say, oh, we should have had Bernie Sanders. And I can, I look at America and think, look, Bernie Sanders might have been a bit Marmite in this country, but in America, we're not like Americans in terms of our political views. I can see that Bernie Sanders would struggle to appeal to a lot of people in America, even moderate people. So, I'm not, but it's ridiculous to me that a movement as large as either of the big political parties in America cannot find a fit, healthy, articulate, driven 50-year-old or something. Yeah. It's a madness.
Yeah.
The thought was, my view at the time was that they had Kamala Harris as Biden's roommate. She was supposed to be the heir presumptive and she would naturally take over, but she's not won people over. And I don't know whether that was the plan. I got the impression that was the plan. I got the impression that Biden was always intended as a one-term president.
Yeah, I did as well. He put out that impression. He put out that impression that he was a transitional president and the next generation would come up. Worth bearing in mind as well that Obama only became a senator in 2005 and then he became president in 2008.
Yeah, he was very inexperienced.
Yeah.
He just ran a stunning campaign. He was absolute, he made a lot of mistakes as president because he was so inexperienced in politics. One of the benefits with Biden was he understood how politics works. He understood how the American system worked. So he was very good at getting things through. And he's got a lot of things through. He's actually objectively done very well as president.
Yeah.
But if you can't even beat Trump in a debate, where are you?
Exactly. Johnny Carpet, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, mate. Haven't had a Tory canvassers knock on the door yet. I think I might have to. It might be something to do with the big Vote Labour poster in my front window. Good on you, Johnny. Thank you very much for the super chat. And Alec Barrett there, £2 super chat. Whitmer, Newsom, Bashir, etc. aren't ready to replace.
Why? Why aren't they? Why haven't they? Why haven't they developed this talent?
Yeah. Yeah, because even if Biden was firing on all cylinders, which he's not, there's the argument that he is really old. He is one fall away from being incapacitated as a commander in chief. It's such a risk. Why are they rolling the dice on this when literally the future of humanity is at stake?
It very much is. It very much is. I can't understand how people cannot be absolutely terrified of Project 2025.
Yeah. Yeah. This is when abortion is going to be criminalized all over the United States.
And that's the low end of it. That is the low end of it.
The Department of Justice is going to be run by Trump and his fascist bully boys. Don't forget, in the American system, instead of having the people around the leader, like in America, obviously it's the president, all of the staff of the president are just paid for by the president. The president appoints them. That doesn't go to doesn't go to any people to vote on. No. You know, it doesn't go to the electorate. Whereas at least in the UK, everyone in the government, bar I guess a lord who pops up now and again, is supposed to be voted on by the electorate. They're supposed to be an MP with a seat. That you know, at least,
and they must be in Parliament. So if you want someone, like when they brought David Cameron to be Foreign Secretary, they had to put him in the House of Lords. Yeah, because you have to be a member of Parliament.
I think they should have had the by-election, because the idea is there that at least you can get rid of them. But a president just surrounds themselves with their cronies, essentially. And Trump is going to surround himself with fascists, and then he's going to take over the Department of Justice, and then he's going to make life.
He's not. That this is the worst thing as well. He's not. He doesn't have the capacity to do this. Other people are going to do it for him. He's going to have his own, like Dominic Cummings, do it. So it's not, because you could say at least Donald Trump will be elected. He won't. He's not capable of ordering his own piss. You know, so it's not him that's going to be doing it. It's going to be someone who's not at all elected, who is going to reform the entire American federal civil service.
What, almost like a kind of deep state actor? Yeah, that'd be very deep state, wouldn't it? In the deep state. Thank you very much to Alec again for the super chat. It's not lack of talent. There is no consensus. Well, it bloody well should be.
It should have been. They should have decided they needed to get behind someone.
Yeah, they need someone to put the fear of God into these people. And you're like, do you know what you're dealing with here? They're all acting, from what I can see. Maybe not all of them, but the people in charge, I guess, of the Democratic Party, like it's a game. They are still playing it like it's a game. Oh,
they haven't read the history books. It's really that simple. They haven't read it. Or they're just going, oh, but it can't happen here because of ours, because they think their system's so great. Every country thinks its system's so great. We've got it in this country. We've got, you say you do know that sort of fascism started in like half the European countries. In the last 150 years, half of Europe has been under a fascist dictatorship, and it all started in exactly the same way. Exactly the same way, exactly the same conditions. Oh, but it can't happen here. We've got exactly the same conditions, and we've got exactly the same people saying exactly the same things, just in English now, but it can't happen here. All right.
Yeah. David Smith, thank you for the super chat. How should Labour / Libs respond to is Farage racist? Declining to call him names risks normalising his rhetoric.
I agree.
Very toxic on boat / UK values. I think you should call him racist. You don't think so?
I at very least think Starmer should have said that Reform UK are a racist party. I see no reason not to. If you don't want to pick on individuals and make it all about one person, that's one thing. Reform UK are a racist group. They're a racist group. We should be able to say that.
Orion does things. Thank you very much for the super chat. If Trump wins, America's condemned to fascism. Ukraine is finished, and the rest of us will be in deep shit.
Ukraine isn't finished. Europe can defend Ukraine. In fact, if anything, it might actually create the impetus to do it properly. There is nothing to stop. The problem is the way some, like France, for example, some politics.
Are you saying we should go to war with Russia, Phil?
I'm
saying, hippie you are.
I'm saying.
I thought you were no good leftist peacenik.
I'm not a pacifist. I'm just someone who thinks that we shouldn't start wars. But
we just finished them.
I would 100% that could almost be, there's no silver lining to Trump winning, but it could almost be, it's like, right, well, we're forced into it now. Our hand is forced, because the reason why we haven't already done this is largely believed to be because of America anyway. America seems to like the idea that Russia's just breaking its head on the brick wall of Ukraine. Whereas quite a lot of countries in Europe would rather this war was over quickly. America has seen, it's like America sees it as in its interest that Russia just slowly bleeds out over it. It doesn't mind the war of attrition as long as it doesn't ultimately win. Whereas Europe would say, no, we want this over tomorrow if possible. So, and all whatever happens in the French elections, which are now basically happening now, it's absolutely mad to think these parliamentary elections were called after hours and they're going to take place before hours. So that's happening now, basically. And, and the far right may take over the French Parliament, but Macron is still president for the next few years. And you could just imagine, if Trump does become president, that it still gives a good couple of years where we could choose to just finish it off. There's nothing. What's to stop us going? If America decides to pull out, it's like, okay, so you're not involved in this anymore, right? We don't have to listen to you anymore. The rest of us think we should get boots on the ground.
Yeah. One of the things that annoyed me in the debate last night was just the lack of fact checking. We're going to come to that in a moment. First of all, thank you, Johnny Cophead, for the super chat. Stephen Miller is the dark, slimy creature slithering around in Trump's shadow. God help America if he gets near the levers of power again. Yeah, I agree. Someone was mentioning about AOC. And yeah, I understand that there's a lot of people on the left who think that she is awesome, but at the same time, she is quite a divisive figure, and I don't think that she has the grounds.
It's like I say, stop thinking about who you approve of. Think about the ordinary voter, the swing voters, the one actions within a political party. They should all vote for that party anyway.
Phil, sorry, we just lost connection for a moment there. Sorry about that. People watching. Sorry, go on, Phil.
I'm just saying, people need to stop thinking about their champion. So if you sit in a faction within a party, in this case the Democrat Party, stop backing your champion. You're going to vote Democrat anyway. If you're not going to vote Biden, I mean, what are you even playing at? You already know that Trump's a monster. You already know that Biden will be far better if he's the pick. You're going to vote Biden. Stop backing your champion. Think about the ones who are deciding. Who will they back? Never mind who you like. Never mind who you approve of. Who will they back? That's what people need to do. That all these different factions need to come together and just say, who are those ordinary people going to back? Because if you want to win, that's how you have to do it. I always think it's like the Ed Miliband case. Back in 2010, when Labour chose Ed Miliband over David Miliband, I mean, there were technically some other options, but those were really the two. And the view was that David Miliband's a bit smarmy, which he is. He's a bit smarmy, a bit of a used car salesman. And what did he do when he lost? He instantly buggered off as well. Whereas Ed Miliband, even when he eventually had to step back, stayed and fought in the Labour Party.
Yeah, and he's going to be part of the new cabinet, isn't he?
But nonetheless, what happened, people picked Ed Miliband, and although I didn't technically pick at the time because I wasn't actually in Labour at that time, I approved, I would have done. They picked him because they thought, he's our man, and we just sort of thought to ourselves, we imagined that he would win and just thought, well, both of them can win, so which one do we prefer? And it's like, now I'm completely of the other view. I will now not even think of other factors. The consequence of losing is too terrible. I work on the basis that my party is going to be in a tough fight in every election. And because it's going to be a tough fight, you cannot afford to sacrifice any advantages. So now my opinion from this point on will always be, which of the prospective leaders is most likely to win? It's not going to be a consideration for me which one I most approve of. Which one is most likely to win? Because I'm going to assume every election is going to be such a tough battle that you cannot afford to be complacent in any area.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that means that both Kamala Harris and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they can't do this at the moment. I mean, maybe in a few years' time, when things in America have got more progressive, but at this moment in time, putting a woman from an ethnic background up against Trump, it's electoral suicide at the moment. Even
I've not
Pete
even been that impressed with Harris
who,
either. I don't think Harris has really stood up.
Even Pete Buttigieg, he wouldn't be great because he's gay, and is America willing to take on a gay president? They might be in a few years' time, but in this election, I don't want to leave anything to chance. I want someone who is an absolute dead cert, can get as many Americans saying, yeah, all right, they'll do, as an alternative to Trump.
Just fit. You want someone who's cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Who's absolutely cookie cutter, boring, like played high school football, 50-year-old white male, ran his own business, whatever.
I really wish that wasn't the case, but we need to beat Trump. Further down the line, brilliant. Let's bring on all the diversity we can. But right now, this is the battle we've got to fight. And you're right. The price of not winning is so great. You're talking. You look at the fact that Labour lost in 2010. That's led to the deaths of millions of British people, or at least the premature deaths of millions through austerity, through the government's terrible handling of COVID, and just generally through the lack of health in this country, the rise in mental health disorders.
Also, it affects everyone from this point on, because it's not like we can just put that infrastructure back in overnight. The infrastructure was dismantled. It was dismantled. So it's not even like they just paused on it effectively. They actively dismantled a lot of it. There is no infrastructure currently being built up at the moment in any area. You look at any government department, we're not building up the NHS, it's being dismantled. We're not building up state schools, they're being dismantled. The court system's being dismantled, prison system's being dismantled. Roads, rail, everything has gone backwards. So we can't even get back to 2010. And 2010, if it had stayed in stasis, that still wouldn't be good enough, because other countries have moved on.
Yeah, exactly.
They've just opened up a bloody line in France at the moment, an unmanned train service that just, there's no drivers in it, just get on, every 55 minutes, off you go. And it's like, we're looking at this and thinking, bloody hell.
Well, yeah.
They only have to cancel service because there's no drivers. France has just got drivers. We don't need drivers. Here's your train.
Just a big shout out to Jay Dash there for the super chat. Are you doing a Centurion drinking game on election night? Mouthful of your drink each time anyone by the Tories win a seat. Yeah, maybe if I've got a low alcohol beer, because there's going to be a lot of sips. I got to say, like, we're talking maybe 400. So yeah, you couldn't have a shot. Nicholas Fleiss, thank you very much for the 5 Swiss francs. That's really kind of you. Phil, I've sent you an image on WhatsApp. Have you got WhatsApp there?
Let's have a look.
I'm going to put it up on the screen here. This is genuine, a bit of electioneering that's gone out from the Tory party, and this is the dreadful Daniel Kudzinski, who's the Polish guy who wanted Poland to interfere in British politics to get us out of the European Union. Privately educated, of course. Anyway, so they have sent out these documents. Now, as a business owner myself, I get documents like this all the time from HMRC. He's made it look like, or they've made it look like, HMRC. That is absolutely disgraceful. To paraphrase the great Liz Truss, that is a disgrace.
But this is what we knew they would do. This we knew they were bad enough in 2019, and they were going to win. Then this time they're going to lose. So we knew this was baked in. We know that there's nothing they won't do. What needs to happen is this sort of deliberately misleading campaigning needs to be made illegal with serious criminal charges for it in the next parliament. Labour cannot mess about with this. They cannot allow this. It's ridiculous that, again, politics is held to a much lower standard. You know, if you were to do that as a business ploy, let's say you ran a business and you were doing something like that to try and mislead customers, you would be charged with a crime. Yeah. And yet political parties, there is no law stopping any lie during an election campaign. Yeah. None at all. Yeah. There's you can complain to the Electoral Commission. I encourage people to do so, because they'll write a report. So if you see things like this, absolutely write to the Electoral Commission. They will compile a report. There will be no charges following.
Well, why write to them then, Phil?
Because they can compile a report to highlight the problem, and it gives ammunition for Labour to do something about it.
Absolutely
disgraceful. Because you have to identify the problem before you can tell people there needs to be a solution. Yeah. Because anything that Labour do, anything at all that has any bearing on an election campaign, the Tories will just say they're trying to gerrymander or trying to rig the system in their favour. And there's going to be plenty of that already. They're already talking about it with giving the vote to 16-year-olds and stuff like that. So it's rigging it in their favour. No one ever says to these Tories who say that, it's, why don't you think you appeal to 16-year-olds then? Yeah. That's what the likes of John Cruddas are saying. If they bring in proportional representation, the Conservatives will be frozen out of power forever. Says, well, why don't you think you can win a more proportional electoral system?
Yeah, well, why didn't you make life better for 16-year-olds? They might vote for you. We've got a lot of discussion in the chat of who could replace Biden. Gavin Newsom's name's coming up. He's the governor of California, in his 50s, good-looking guy. But who was it? Someone in the chat said, but he's from California. I think it was Captain Bart Roberts. Yeah, he's Californian. Doesn't play well in flyover countries. Okay, could someone tell that to America in 1983 when they all voted for Ronald Reagan? Yeah. He was Californian. And Johan van Kerkhoven says, since Refuck is a company and not a party, don't they have to abide by relevant truth in advertising laws? Well, no.
In fact, during an election campaign, there are even fewer constraints.
Maggie Pie's got a question. Thank you very much for the super chat, Maggie Pie. The Tories lie again. Why am I not surprised? Why isn't Maggie Pie surprised, Phil?
Well, because all I would say is I actually thought it was going to be nastier, this campaign. Yeah. I mean, this last week is where they're going for it, but the thing is, they've been so comically bad that you've seen that. Did you see that thing they brought up yesterday with Angela Rayner?
No.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'm going to have to find it now. On Twitter? Yeah, I'll find it. Don't you worry. It's absolutely insane. They're so comically bad that they can't. It's stupid evil. They can't get evil right. So although it is really nasty, and it's incredibly unpleasant what they're doing, they're misfiring a lot.
Is this a video? That they put up? Angela Rayner's Britain.
Well, the thing is, I could put it. I won't be able, when I find it eventually, I won't be able to put up what she's saying. So what she's saying, she's talking about giving. She's talking about giving. Oh, okay, giving more people rights. I'm not sure I can find it for some reason. That's really annoying. Oh, hold on. I will find it in a moment. We can carry on talking while I do.
Okay.
It's but
it's rights for
they're so bad at it. Yeah. It would be different if they understood. Like, it's a bit like they did a tweet a few days ago. It says, "Oh, what are Labour going to be doing?" They put tax, and it took about a minute for me to scroll all the way down. It was like The Shining. It was just the word tax repeated hundreds of times.
Well, I've got the video here. It's only 20 seconds, so I'm just going to play it for everyone. So this is an attack ad by the Tories against Angela Rayner. So here it is.
It's rights from day one. It's ending fire and rehire. We will ban and end 0-hour contracts. We will end this bogus self-employment. Okay. That is our mission as part of the New Deal. That's what we're setting out. So that's my mission. That's what I want to achieve. You don't know what's coming.
What on earth? What's coming? Mario? What the hell was that?
Well, this is a weird thing.
This is a Stalinist for saying that she wants a better deal for working people.
They put a French flag on it, so they're trying to make her look French somehow.
French? Oh, so that was it. It wasn't Stalin or Mario.
Or Mario. Lots of people thought they were trying to make her look like Mario. And it's like this French flag, and it's like, and it's like really weird as well. So they're trying to say, oh, we're going to become this socialist super state. And it's like, you are choosing the time where France is about to vote for the far right, aren't you? But it's all mad. The whole thing is mad on every level.
What the hell?
They're
so bad at this.
A media studies course could do an entire lesson just on that tweet.
That is just absolutely bonkers. The first comment on it is, "I don't get this. Can someone explain?"
Yeah.
Why are you doing Labour's promo for them? That was Femi's response. Cold War Steve put up a picture of them all swimming about in money.
I just put it down to the heat. It's been very hot. It's actually a bit cooler today, but it's been very hot. And I just think they've got the windows open on the wrong side of the building.
So Servation, on behalf of the GMB, showed that 76% of those questions said the practice of fire and rehire should be against the law, including 71% of Conservative voters. Why are you doing Labour's? Why are you doing Labour's promo for them? My God, Tim in the chat, thank you so much for the £10 super chat. So needs to be Jamie Raskin. He would rip Trump several new ones. I think Raskin or Newsom either would be better than Biden, because as some people have said in the chat, I think that everyone has made up their mind who they're going to vote for when it comes to Trump or Biden. It's just getting them out to vote is going to be the issue. And the Trump lot are going to be very motivated to vote. Whereas if Biden runs, the Democrat voters, the naturally Democrat voters, will be voting against Trump rather than for Biden.
Yeah.
And that's not a great thing. Welcome to level 1. Orion does things. Well done for getting to level 1. Woo! I don't really know what that means, but yay. So anything else you want to say before we finish up, Phil? Any bon mots?
Well, there was, I mean, your little bit of news. One of the little things that flew below the radar this week was quite funny. Ooh. So Tommy Robinson has been arrested for being an illegal immigrant in Canada. But the best part of it was, on his documents, it turns out he's an Irish citizen. He went there on an Irish passport.
He's got an Irish passport.
He's arrested for being an illegal immigrant. He pretends to be this English nationalist, but he's Irish.
Tommy, 10 names.
So, because obviously, as a Brexiteer, of course, the last thing he wanted to give up was his freedom of movement. So he has an Irish passport.
What a rat bag. What an absolute fucking rat bag. I hate them, Phil. I hate all of them. They're all like this. Like every single Brexiter is all like, yeah, I just want to take away rights from working class people.
Other people.
Yeah, working class people. Yeah, middle class people generally okay with Brexit because they can still go and live and work. They might be able to.
I don't know if they try and go on holiday, they get a bit stuck at times.
Yeah, but they can afford a visa. You know, at the end of the day, they can afford to work there.
Yeah, you can afford to spend 20 hours in the queue if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, or you can pay for the fast track.
I don't think there's many fast tracks at Dover.
Well, yeah, well you wouldn't do
there's
that.
There's capital, but they're going to have to build some catapults.
Flying Concorde or something. But yeah, I mean, it disproportionately impacts the working class. Brexit. And the architects of it pretty much all went to private school. And, you know, class war.
Pretty much. Was there anyone who didn't? Did they have any actual...
Tommy Robinson didn't go to private school. I don't think. He might have done. I don't know. He might have gone to private school in Ireland for all I know. He's got 10 names.
Yeah.
But definitely Farage, Aaron Banks, Richard Tice, Boris Johnson, Michael Gove, Jacob Rees-Mogg, all that lot. Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
All of them went to private school. Dominic Cummings saying he's got to get out of London because he's got to get away from the metropolitan elite.
So, well, that's all right. Siberia's nice this time of year.
Like you are the metropolitan elite. Anyway, indeed. So, anyway, look, let's leave it at that. Are you going to be around tonight, Phil?
His wife's a baronet's daughter or something, isn't she?
Tommy Robinson?
No, Dominic Cummings. He's
literally
married into the aristocracy.
Oh, yeah. He owns a castle. So, you know, his wife, they live in a castle, I think. Yeah. But, you know, we're us plebs are the real elites, if you think about it. Anyway, are you going to be around tonight, Phil?
I don't know tonight. I've still not been feeling too clever in the evenings.
Okay, well, you know, don't stress it. But yeah, I'll be back tonight at 8:00 for Quaggle Box. Unfortunately, the Farage thing, creep, tapeworm, slimeball, foghorned, faced bollock of ignorance is going to be on Question Time. So we're going to be doing a watch party for that between 8 and 9. And then straight after that, we're going to be doing the old Politics Social. So please join us for that. In the meantime, if you want to help out with our setting up of automated accounts to get our progressive messages out to people that need to see them, I've been told not to call it a bot farm. Head over to endthetories.com and see if you can help out with that, either financially or there's a link there to the Discord server where we can talk about what your skills are that you could bring to the game. And if you would like to come to the party on Thursday in London, please get in touch. There's about 100 tickets left, and they're probably going to go like hotcakes over the weekend. So if you want to get yourself a place there, if you haven't got the money for it and you still want to go, get in touch with me. I've got some tickets put aside for people who, from the people in the chat who have actually donated some money towards other people being able to go to the event. So if you want to come, just get in touch. I don't bite. Okay, so Phil, anything else you need to say before we go?
No, I don't think so.
Oh God,
I can't think of
just
anything.
Dropped a light. That wasn't very good. Okay, well, thanks very much. Thanks to everyone in the chat, our socialites. Thanks to all the badgers around the world. and give us a like on the way out. And as always, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.